Okay, let's play with the elements of art and principles of design a little bit. And we're going to start with line, the most basic one. Line, line. Got line is something you can just play with. Thin lines, slightly thicker lines. Maybe you want to thicken it even more and give it some thickness, kind of like I did on the word there. It's just simple ways to play with the element of art called line. Make it thin, make it thick. So let's say we want to write line again, just to emphasize that we're playing with line. Oh, that was kind of not even, hardly even visible. Let's do it a little thicker. So your line thickness can vary from, well, a much wider range. You could go even thicker. Line. Just by taking the side of the pencil and giving it a few rounds. Line. It's getting pretty scary there, pretty ugly, Erickson. Okay. So, and that's just a start. That's just a start. The thickness of the line, the lightness or darkness of a line. Then let's start playing with types of lines. Things like contour. If you're looking at a sphere, the contour lines can show you what the form of it is. Then you can go and put some cross-hatching contour lines. You can do that with many other forms. What else? What other types of lines can you play with? Well, there's not really any limit. So for the purposes of art, the definition of line, I've heard it called a moving dot. I've heard it referred to as a moving point. Lines don't have to be straight. They can be. But in art, your line, any type of curvature is still considered a line. If it starts somewhere and ends somewhere else, it's a line. That's a line, that's a line. That's a line. All those things are lines. Let's talk a little bit more about types of lines. Let's talk about line thickness and how you can use it in a drawing. So here's a thick and thinner and thinner. Say you're drawing somebody's nose, for example. Perfect example. The nose, you're going to often have a nice thick line for the nostril, and the little dark part of the nostril will be even thicker, often, not always. Make this a very pronounced nostril nose drawing. Okay, so there's the real thickness of the line. But then you might have some more lines that are still lines, but they're just very light. They're contour lines. They're lines that show how the light's hitting the object and what the form is, but they're not those thick lines. And maybe you show this. There's lots of ways to show it, but the range of thickness in the line can help you see the contour. What else do we want to talk about? How about lines of sight where somebody's looking? Let's draw a pair of thick glasses on somebody. This is a very awkward drawing, but I'm just trying to say lines of sight are a thing where somebody's looking. Let's give this somebody a slightly more realistic head shape by putting some hair on them, maybe. Anyways, all this is line. Your lines can be horizontal. Your lines can be vertical. Your lines can be diagonal. Your lines can be curved like these, or they can be very straight like those. Curved lines are sometimes called organic lines, or even biomorphic. Lines of things that are alive have softer shapes, softer edges. Geometric lines are going to be straighter, like the lines that show you the shape of a triangle or a pyramid. Of course, that's getting into shape and form, but it's all based on line. What else? Oh, descriptive lines versus abstract lines. Descriptive lines accurately reveal information about something. They describe. So like there's this nose here, you can tell it's a nose, sort of. But then you have non-descriptive lines which aren't trying to represent anything, which is what these are. They're more abstract. So you can play around with the abstractions. This might look like a wave to you, but more likely it just looks like some play. If you were trying to do something that was more like a wave, you might actually give it a little bit more of a sense of, now that could still be abstract, but it starts to look like, okay, that looks like a representation of a wave. Okay, so when you're playing around with line, that's what you're going to do. You're going to play around with these kinds of Now, next we have shape, and then we have form as well. Shape is the second element of art. Form is the third element of art. And shape and form are both related. Nice M. Shape and form shapes are flat and two-dimensional. Forms are three-dimensional. They're not flat. They have height. They have length. But they also have depth, which is the third dimension. So if it's a form, it's like that graph. If it's a shape, it's like that graph, right? It's flat. If it's 3D, it's got the depth as well. So if you were to take, oh, I don't know, let's just draw a simple profile of a person and see how well we can do. Good enough. That's flat, right? Well, what makes it 3D? Well, let's take a similar profile, but this time we'll give it some aspects that make it look more three-dimensional. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, lighting. So if the light's coming from above, you might see the shadows coming down below. And it starts to have a little bit more form. Now that's not a great drawing, but it gives you the idea. We can just do it with the simple shape of like a circle and a sphere. It's a little easier to quickly do that. Oops, if I start doing that, now it's not a shape. So let me undo that, because those are contour lines. Those are lines which reveal the form. So over here, like that, I'm already starting to turn this shape into a form because I've added some contour information. Okay, so if you're playing with shape, of course, triangles, squares, etc. If you're playing with form, the triangle becomes a pyramid. The square becomes a cube, and so on. Okay, the other thing when you're talking about form is usually you're going to have some evidence of light, and the light helps to make the form more clear. So if you're trying to draw something that has form, usually part of the story is lighting. Where's the light coming from? Wherever the light is, a shadow will be cast. These, of course, are not from the same point of view. It's kind of looking down, and that's looking from the side. This one, the light's on the other side. Okay, so play with shape and form. Oh, some other things that are related to the element of art called shape. The figure-ground relationship. The figure is whatever the subject of your art is, but it's the subject that's taking up the shape. So, for example, say that this flat two-dimensional shape is the figure, then what would be the ground? This space. The area surrounding the figure. I also sometimes say the background. Okay? So this too is the figure, and that's the ground. So you can play with the figure and ground relationships, and figure is also known as positive shape. Ground is known as negative shape. You can play with the positive and the negative shapes and reverse them and have a bit of fun in your exploration of shape and form. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about a little bit today as far as shape and form goes? We talked about lighting, organic versus geometric shapes. So these are geometric shapes, the circles and triangles and squares, the spheres, the pyramids, the cubes. If you're drawing people or plants or mountains even, or clouds, you're gonna draw more organic shapes. Those have softer lines usually. If you're drawing buildings, it's going to be more geometric. What other concepts related to shape and form? Oh, open and closed. An open shape, something can get in it. A closed shape, oh, nope, I closed it. Okay, so like a open, let's just say there's like a door. It's open, and then I take the door and I close it. So that's open. Something could get inside it, and that's closed. And it applies to both. Shapes and forms. So you could have, say it's a form. It's a little more 3D. It could still be open, right? That's open. Even if there's like, you say, well, that shape is closed. Yeah, but if it's a form, and like you could go sit in there and you could hide if you're playing hide and go seek. If this is a real big, like outdoor sculpture or hill or something. Okay. Whereas the same type of shape, if it was like that, right, it's enclosed. You have to climb it to get in there. Oh, well, you could say it's open. Yeah, from another point of view. So these words are to help us understand how the shapes and forms work. It's a donut. Take a bite out of it and it'll become open. Maybe. All right. So how do you play with these? How do you use these in art? First thing is just be aware of them, because as soon as you put your pencil on paper, you're going to be making lines, and pretty soon you're going to be making shapes. And as soon as you introduce light and shadow, you're in the realm already of form. All right, what other elements of art do we need to talk about? Value and color. This is a very quick introduction / review. Value is the range of light and dark. And value is related to showing light, showing shade, showing shadow. So the white of the paper is the very lightest value over here. And as I turn my pencil on the side and I start to just put a little bit more pressure and overlap it a little bit more, I'm extending the value range. It's still a pretty light value range over here, but I'm going to keep going. It's going to get a little darker. A little darker. And now I'm playing with the element of art known as value. The more I extend the value range in a work of art that I'm making, the more dynamic, the more alive, the more interesting, the more impactful, the more exciting the art becomes. Sometimes in art, you really can extend the value range so much that it's just amazing. And sometimes that's what draws your eyes towards certain artists and works of art, is the intensity of the darks, especially in the contrast with the lights. And so you can take this, we're making a value scale right now. You can take this value scale and you can use it in drawings to make your drawing drawing's interesting. Make the pupils darker, make the reflection on the pupils brighter. Show the range of value on the face that you're drawing to make the contours more believable. Maybe you're drawing a sky, and maybe there's areas of the sky that are really dark, and then maybe right next to the area there's like this area that gets a little lighter, and there's cloud, and that cloud contrasts with the darkness of the sky. And maybe the cloud just keeps moving, and in some places it gets a little darker, and in other places it remains lighter. But seeing it so vividly against the dark sky is really visually impactful, right? It makes you go, wow, look at that. So the more you extend that in your drawing, the more your drawing starts to come alive. So that's what value's for. It's fun. Maybe there's another layer of clouds that sit over this layer and are even darker. They're not going to be as dark as the dark sky, but they'll be a little darker than the clouds behind them, maybe. Just play with it. Maybe there's a row of darker clouds down in front of these lighter clouds. Maybe there's like a sun setting in the far distance, or the sun's already set, but there's a little light coming out, and then maybe there's this little area that's like the horizon and the mountains, and they contrast with the lightness of the sunset area. And then maybe there's just like a gradual transition, kind of like this, where it just slowly the sky just starts to have a little bit of color in it, or a little bit of value. Since we're doing this in black and white, we'll just say value. Just slowly it starts to come. And then it gets a little darker, but then these dark clouds sitting over really stand out in front of that. Maybe look at that and you don't see any clouds, you just see smudges. That's okay. But that's what you're doing when you play with value and shading. A couple words to know. Shading, of course, is putting in the darks and light, showing the evidence of light. There's a word, chiaroscuro. And it shows up especially in Italian Renaissance paintings of artists like Caravaggio, where the extreme dark contrasts with the extreme bright. Okay, color is the next topic. And if we're going to talk about color, we need to have a color to use. If we're going to talk about color, we got to have some color. So, color. Of course, there's many colors out there in nature, and color is the way the eye interprets reflected light. When you see something red, the object you're seeing is absorbing all the other colors, and red is the color that's reflecting to your eye. So, and there's various reds. Red's a primary color, and that means that in nature, red exists just by itself. You don't make red out of other colors, but you can take red. I'll put another red on there. This one's a little more brownish red. Kind of a purplish brownish red. So red's a primary color. Yellow is another primary color. Let's look at that. Yellow is another primary color, and primary colors show up in nature. You can't make primary colors out of other colors. You can take the primary colors, however, and make other colors. So the primaries are just there. They're just natural. The other colors are made from the primaries. So if you're exploring, looking for a blue, I found a violet blue and I found a violet, but I just want a pure blue. And I'm having trouble finding that right now. Yeah, there's another one. Red, yellow, and by the way, these are not necessarily the most basic versions of the primaries red and yellow. There are variations. Here's a real dark blue. There's a lighter blue. This is ultramarine blue. Okay, blue. Red. Yellow. Kind of hard to read that. Are the primary colors. Primary. So you take the red, you mix it with some yellow, and what color do you get? You get orange, right? So let's just do that. Let's take a little red. I'm going to add another yellow up here. The same yellow? No, that's a different yellow, but it looks very similar. Okay, so let's now layer that yellow on top of the red, and let's see how orange it turns out. Let's try a little bit lighter red. See if we can get an orange that we like. I might not like it very much. I'm not sure I do. This looks more like a Looks more like a red than an orange still to me. I don't know that that's going to help us much. So I'm going to stop with that. Blue, here's a lighter blue. We'll mix with yellow to get what color? Yeah, we'll get green. And let's make sure we're grabbing the right. Okay, this one, you can kind of see the green coming out a little more than we did with the orange. Kind of a mushy green. Anyway, you get the idea. So now let's take a color that's been mixed better than I did, and let's just show what happens when you mix red and blue. You get violet. Blue mixed with red makes violet. Red mixed with yellow makes orange, and let's get a truer orange. Yeah, see, that's better. There's the orange we really wanted to see. And let's get a green we like better too. Oh yeah, what a nice green. Yellow mixed with blue makes green. Alright, and now let's just see let's see if we can make a mix of red and blue that makes a violet that we like better. There's a red. There's a blue. A little dark. Red. That's a little dark. Okay. So, the element of our color. If you're exploring color, there's ways to play with the color. One is just making color schemes out of the primaries, like red, yellow, and blue, and using that to make something interesting to you. Like, for example, maybe we'll make a simple little diamond shape here. That's red. And we'll make another shape over here that's yellow. And we'll make another one over here that's, you guessed it, blue. And now we're playing with the primary colors as a color scheme, and you could develop your color schemes much more than this in your art. This is just a real simple, basic example. But the other color schemes that you'll see are colors that are on the color wheel that are next to each other, like red, yellow, and blue, red, and blue, and then orange, violet, So, opposite colors on a color wheel. When the color wheel is drawn properly, which I did not do, those would be opposite, those would be opposite, and those would be opposite. So yellow and violet, you could make a color scheme in your art that studies the relationship between yellow and violet. And that would be an interesting way to study, or that element of art, the element of art of color. I don't know. Maybe sticking with the cube theme. Or you could take red and green and play with that, or orange and blue and play with that. That's just one set of color schemes, complementary colors. And the other is analogous colors. Those are the colors that are near each other. And of course, I've left out all the intermediary colors, which if you take a primary and mix it with a secondary, you get a tertiary or intermediate color, red, orange, or orange, red. That's usually the primary color is named first. So if you're going to mix red with violet, the color would be red, violet. All right, what else are we going to talk about? Oh, how about color as a way to play with monochromaticism? When you draw with pencil, you're drawing monochromatically. You're using the white of the paper and the color of the graphite, the grays and the light grays and the dark grays, and the range of value between as black as you can get to as white as you can get, with the range in between. It's monochromatic. You can do the same thing with color. You can draw just like you would with pencil, using a colored pencil, and you can normally the sky's not all red, but here's some clouds, and then there's some more in the distance, and then somewhere here's the horizon, and there's a mountain, and there's some water, or maybe it's not water, maybe it's land, you decide, but a couple more mountains. But it's monochromatic. It's using one color, mono, chroma, one color, to create a world. All right, we did line, we did shape and form, we did value, we did color. We still need to talk about texture and space. So line is the foundation for everything. And so if you want to create the illusion of space, you usually are going to use line, shape, form, value, and color. So you use these things to create space, right? And let's do it a little bit. Line, shape and form, value, color, that's a mess, and then space. to create the illusion of space is to use perspective. Draw yourself a cube, pick a point, connect the corners of your, well, I said cube, but it starts with a square. The corners of your square to that distant spot. Then draw on the edges. Now you've created the illusion of space. There's this cube and then there's some space behind it. Well, it's very basic, so let's create some more space. Let's put another one over here. And then connect our edges. And then let's draw the back side. And then let's do another one over here. Maybe we'll make it small, make it look like it's kind of further in the distance. Something like that. And you can just keep on doing new drawings in this world using the one vanishing point. That's one point perspective. You can do the same thing with two vanishing points. And that's a vanishing point. There's another one. There's another one. This is a new drawing. And once you've got the vanishing points, you want to draw yourself a vertical line. Connect the top and the bottom to that vertical. Connect the top and bottom of your vertical line to the vanishing points, and now you've got a structure. And it could be long, it could be short, but we'll just do it like that. Now we've created the illusion of space using two vanishing points. If we want to put another one, let's make a bigger one over here. Again, draw these first parts lightly. You don't even have to draw it all the way. Just kind of draw it in the direction of. And now we've got another form. Okay, so we're using now line, shape, and form to create the illusion of space. See that? Now, there's a missing element from this drawing, and that's the horizon line. I'm going to draw it in very lightly. And normally you wouldn't see through these structures, but the horizon line will be in the back there. So if you want to kick it up a notch, you can draw another structure way in the distance, going up from the horizon line to the vanishing point on both sides, and then just make it look like there's another structure way in the distance behind the horizon line. Okay, if you want to extend it out even more, you can draw something. Let's draw it, let's put it over here. We'll make it even bigger, and I should say taller because it's going to be thin, because I don't want it to go in front of that. So there's another structure to add to our sense of illusion of space. Okay, then you gotta erase that. Well, you don't have to, but if you want it to look like it's not a see-through building. Anyway, we're creating the illusion of space using line, shape, and form. So anytime you are exploring space, you're also going to be exploring line, shape, and form. Now, value is the other thing you can do to create the illusion of space and make it more interesting. So how do you do that? Well, one way is you can make the values richer on the forms that are nearer to the viewer. You also can spend more time working on the details, because things that are closer to us, we can see the details more. So, but let's just, for the example now, let's just stick with value. So say there's another shape here in the distance, and we'll just keep it in the same range, but we draw it just a little bit lighter, like there's little particles that make it a little harder for us to see. And then the further back things get, the lighter and lighter they get. Let's do it over here. So if this is your horizon line, and say there's a mountain here, and this mountain is closer to us than another mountain right behind it, then the mountain behind it will be a little lighter. And then if there's another mountain behind that one, then that'll be even lighter, right? And the further it goes into the distance, the less you can see it. This is called atmospheric perspective, or aerial perspective. You're using value and lighter values to make things, to create the illusion of space. What else? We've talked about linear perspective. Oh, some basic ways to create illusions of space, to create a 3D environment. Size, overlapping, placement. We've already used size a little bit, and a little bit of placement and overlapping, but let's just make it explicit. If I have a large building here, and then I make a smaller one in the same, let's just say it's on the same pathway here. Okay, that creates the illusion that this is closer than that one, because size, this is bigger. Placement, this is higher up, it's closer to the horizon line. The bottom is closer to the horizon line. The top is also closer to the horizon line. In this case, it's lower. So the top is lower, the bottom is higher. That's when the horizon line is in between. Okay, so that's size and placement. And then overlapping is if you're going to just put something else behind something else. So maybe there's another building back behind this one. Make it small. So now you've got size and placement and overlapping all happening. This is smaller. The top of the building is higher up in this case, but so that's sort of contradictory, but it still works. You still can tell because of the overlapping. What else? Let's use size on this side. So let's just say there's a smaller one over here. That's like the same kind of building, but it's back behind the horizon line. And this one's not going to be overlapped, but this is just size. You can see that size difference a little better there. Okay, size, placement, overlapping, linear perspective, aerial and atmospheric perspective. Anything else I want to talk about with you before we move on to the last element of art, which is texture? I think that'll be it for space for now. There's a lot more ways to look at it and approach it, but let's just wrap it up. Okay, the last one, we'll just leave it on the same page. The last element of art, texture. Texture is what something would feel like if you could touch it. And texture is an element of art. So the way you draw something to make it look like if you touched it, how it would feel is what we mean by texture. So, you know, if you're drawing grass, maybe you draw it in little movement like that. Well, texture explores line, right? Texture is very much related to line. If something is a little smoother and shinier, the gradual change in value demonstrates that a little more. And if something is rough, coarser, or even like prickly and pointed, let's say that's a semi-smooth texture, but what if you have a different type of sphere that has very very sharp little points on it? Well, that's texture too. So this is an exploration of line. Or what if you have like a lint ball? That's texture. Right? Or scales. Maybe you like to draw dragons. My daughter loves to draw dragons. So you can see or feathers. So if you're going to draw something that explores texture, that's what you're going for. You're trying to show the way it would feel. You could touch it. Maybe like a brick road, or a brick wall. Kind of looks right now more like a wall than a road. You can explore how that texture will reveal itself. Zoomed in, maybe the crevices between the bricks show a little more of the cement in between them. So, and then how you show the light, how you show the value, and what details you want to add, of course, too, are related to the texture. Does this brick have little holes in it? It's kind of porous. There I am, off the page again. All right, well, I'm done. That was a review of the elements of art. I hope that was helpful to somebody.